Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for splitting his time. And I also want to make note and thank a previous speaker, member for Sydney, Victoria. I want to say to him, Walalan, for people staying up late to watch main estimates on fisheries, that was an important historical, personal, and very relevant step towards reconciliation to understand who Junior Marshall really was. I asked the honourable member a number of questions. They're in the context of my extreme level of panic that Pacific wild salmon are in collapse, and that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans doesn't seem to understand the level of urgency around a multifaceted and multi-layered crisis. To focus with a little bit of time on some very specific questions, I want to ask the Honourable Minister if, and this is based on advice that the Fisheries and Oceans Committee heard before prorogation, that the only thing to do with the Big Bar slide to help the salmon in the Fraser River is to get a fish ladder in place. Has the Department of Fisheries and Oceans commissioned and contracted for the engineering and construction of a fish ladder as a permanent solution on the Big Bar slide?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. With regards to the Big Bar landslide, we know that we have made significant progress, but that more has to be done. Right now, we are currently in the process of building a natural fish passageway. That is going to be one of the things that has to be done in order to make sure that we address the concerns in the Fraser River with regards to the slide. We have been taking a multi-level government approach to this. We've had the province behind us. We've worked with the Indigenous communities in the area, and we're going to continue to do everything we possibly can to address this concern.
Yeah.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take it the answer is then no, and I would urge the minister to look at the testimony that we had before the Fisheries and Oceans Committee, specifically from First Nations leadership, that the only solution, and it's going to be expensive, is a permanent solution with engineering and building a fish ladder. It must be done. I want to move to the issue of the number 19 recommendation of the Cohen Commission, the Discovery Islands, and the minister and I did exchange concerns about this issue during question period some months ago. I'm desperately concerned that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans constructed its review of the threat to wild salmon from the fish farms, specifically excluding the parasitic effect, the sea lice that escape and affect wild salmon, not taking those into consideration. Within the minister's own department, Dr. Christy Miller has done important work on this, which appears to have been excluded from consideration. So I asked the minister why it was that we have not taken action as the Cohen Commission recommended to protect our wild salmon.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to clarify for my honourable colleague that we actually have contracted for the Big Bar ladder. It's being that's the natural fish passageway. So yes, I do want to clarify that has been contracted. We are working on that. We know it's an important part of making sure that the salmon are able to traverse the river. Mr. Speaker, with regards to the Discovery Islands, protecting the wild Pacific salmon is a priority for us, and we recognize the First Nations historic cultural connection to wild salmon. Our government manages risk from sea lice using science-based adaptive management approach. This spring, in consultation with our partners, my department revised the licenses of marine aquaculture finfish operators in British Columbia to increase the enforceability of license conditions pertaining to the management of sea lice. So that is a step that we are taking to address the concerns around sea lice, but also with regards to the Discovery Islands specifically and the Cohen Commission. One of the things we heard loud and clear from the First Nations in those areas is that we could not make a unilateral decision on the fish farms. That they're in their territorial waters. They wanted to have a say in it. They knew it was important that we make the decision, but they wanted to make sure that they had. They were.
We're just going to leave enough time. One more quick question. We got 40 seconds. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you. And with respect, Madam Minister, the department had plenty of time to consult between the Cohen Commission report and when we didn't take those recommendations. But quickly, to the southern resident killer whales, I've had other discussions with the department about the sanctuary areas, Pender Island and Saturna Island. Not a single fine has been levied. No one who has violated the sanctuary for the whales has faced any punishment. Can the minister commit to a much better and more robust protection of our southern resident killer whales?
The Honourable Minister, a short response.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, absolutely, we are committed to making sure we protect this iconic species. We are taking a number of measures to address the concerns that we hear with regards to the southern resident killer whales. We're going to continue to work with stakeholders, with environmental organizations to make sure that we're addressing concerns. This is an iconic species that nobody wants to see become extinct. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we protect it.
We'll go